and foremost, thank you guys for joining us for this exciting webinar. I know this has probably caught some of you off guard, those of you that are familiar with us here at LBR, as primarily in Italian DMC. And the question might have come up, why are they talking about the Azores? So first and foremost, I'd like to introduce all of you guys to Athena, who's going to be walking us through this really exciting destination with us today. And I'll let her introduce herself really quickly before we dive in.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, evening, wherever you are. My name is Athena. I am based out of Lisbon. And yeah, so I have a foot in many worlds. I've spent a lot of time in Italy, so I've worked a lot with LBR in Italy and also working a bit in Portugal now. And Portugal is the obvious connection to the Azores. So this is the territory I have explored. Jet, I don't know if you want me to launch into why I love the Azores yet, or we'll get to that later.
Yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about your experience with the Azores, just to orient folks on why we're actually talking about this particular destination today. I think that's important.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, some of it is a personal story. 2020, long story short, I was on a sailing trip, and we all know what happened in 2020. So my sailing trip didn't go quite as planned, and I found myself probably 5 months out of a 2 month trip. We'd been at sea for 5 months, and we hadn't been allowed to make landfall because of COVID restrictions. And so the Azores was the first place we were allowed to step off the ship. So if you can imagine crossing the Atlantic, you haven't seen even the color green for 53 days, seeing these magical islands was something that will forever be emblazoned in my memory and allowed me to start to discover these incredible volcanic archipelago that has been compared to Hawaii. So it's kind of the Hawaii of the Atlantic. We'll get onto that a little bit more and show you guys a map. But that's how my interest was first piqued in the Azores, and I've returned multiple times since then to explore more and more, traveling with my family, and also researching, meeting partners, developing relationships there. So I'm so excited to share some of this with all of you today.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you, Athena. So just to give you guys a little bit more context in how we started working with this particular destination, Athena came on board with us as a local manager and a travel designer. She also does a lot of our R&D for us here at LBR several years ago. And as we were working a lot, obviously in Italy being our primary market with our travel advisor clients as well as our clients, we found that people who had been returning to Italy time and time again were beginning to ask, what other destinations do you work in that could offer a very similar experience in terms of the authenticity, the immersion, the slowness, and kind of the cultural significance that they were looking for. And so Athena really kind of brought our attention to the Azores. And a couple of years ago, we really began working very diligently to establish the similar types of partnerships that we've established here in Italy. That is more off the beaten path, small mom and pop shop, sort of locally owned and operated, but still high-end hospitality businesses on the island that were striving to maintain and preserve the local cultures and traditions of those unique communities. And so one of the interesting things about the Azores that really caught our attention was that this was, especially being an island chain, this was a particular market that for us represented a kind of emerging market into tourism. And so people were just beginning to really discover this as a destination. And as such, we recognized there was this interesting opportunity to get involved with some of the locals there that were really trying to drive the tourism away from what they were seeing in other parts of Europe, being mass tourism, right? So they're really trying to do a more thoughtful and sustainable way of engaging with the public and sharing their story. And so we found that this aligned really, really well with our values and our ethos in the way that we design travel here in Italy. And so the Azores for us represented a great opportunity to get in early on a destination that was just now beginning to emerge in a way that we could encourage not only just individual travelers, but also our travel advisor partners to to promote a more thoughtful and sustainable way of seeing and experiencing these places. Because ultimately, the foundation of our organization is the belief that the way we choose to experience a place ultimately determines the way that that place becomes. So nothing can be truer than certainly on a small isolated community like the Azores. So really quickly, that's a little bit about why we're talking about the Azores today. We have led a number of small group trips as well as private itineraries to this destination. So just a little bit about who we are for those of you that are not familiar with us at Life Beyond the Room. We are a full service DMC. We're based out of Rome, so we primarily do focus in Italy throughout the entire country. So we have local managers, travel designers that are all based here locally that are on our staff. We also have a counterpart team in the United States. And so we're engaging through that team as well. But we really do focus on like bridging this cultural gap between primarily Italy, but also the Azores in this case, and the United States. So we're trying to bring people here to really experience the culture of these destinations and the uniqueness of them. So just a little bit about how we work. We do a tremendous amount of R&D. So we vet all of our partners. That includes all of our accommodations that we work with, because we want those accommodations to align with our values of sustainability, local ownership, community engagement. We want you to know exactly where you are when you walk in the lobby, right? So places that have a sense of place and character that's unique to those areas is very important to us. So you won't really find us working with large chain hotels. We do typically work with the smaller boutique accommodations, but at a 4- and 5-star level. So not compromising on the quality of amenities there. And then we do work in Travefy. So those of you that work in Travefy, it's very easy to collaborate with us on itineraries. We can obviously do everything white labeled for you. So it's just an easy transition on that platform. We tend to work with turnkey itineraries. So that is to say that, you know, if you're looking for just the one-off transfer or the one-off guided tour or experience here and there within an itinerary, we're probably not going to be the best DMC for you. We tend to work best when we can travel design the entire thing. We do have some flexibility when it comes to which accommodations we work with. We understand a lot of our advisors have particular accommodation partners they prefer over others. So we have flexibility there, but for the most part, we like to capture the entire itinerary for you. And then local management. So again, I mentioned we have local managers throughout the country, as well as Athena, of course, is our local manager for Portugal. And basically the goal of our local managers is to be the full-time concierge for your client when they arrive in country. So that means, you know, any last minute requests, itinerary changes, and just in general to guide them through the itinerary and the experience on a day-to-day as needed. So you've got somebody that's in that time zone that's familiar with the itinerary because they've helped design it. They know all of our partners, they know all of our accommodations. And so you've got somebody kind of walking them through that whole process. And of course, they join us oftentimes when we do the itinerary review with you prior to departure as well. So that's just a little bit about how we work. So really quickly, as we're going through this, guys, please feel free to use the Q&A feature. Yep. And so that'll be the best way for us to answer questions, and we'll answer them as quickly as we can as we go through. But please feel free to just type your questions in the Q&A, and we'll do our best to address them as they come. Just a little bit more about who we're for. So we talked about turnkey itineraries. We love to see that our travel designers partners charge a design fee, because it tells us that first of all, you value your time, and so does your client, and they have a little skin in the game. And so it's just a good indication that that there's good alignment there. We do typically have a minimum budget of a $10,000 spend. That just kind of allows us to kind of get within the category of accommodations and experiences that we typically offer for most of our itineraries. Of course, our group trips are an exception to that. We'll get into that a little bit later. And then we love to see that our travel advisor partners value sustainable travel, a lot of what we talked about earlier with regard to the Azores. And then we plan ahead. We try not to work on a last minute basis. We try and encourage our partners to plan several months ahead if possible, depending on the obviously time of year and destination that can vary too. So great. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. Sorry guys, my dog is fussing at me. Let me look. Here, Pepe. Come on, buddy. Okay, thank you very much.
Julie, I saw your question there. Yes, I'll try to speak into the microphone. Let me know if it's not loud enough.
There we go. That should be better. Awesome. So the Azores, fantastic. So among many reasons, we'll kind of orient you guys really quickly with the Azores for those of you who may not be very familiar. So what's really nice about the Azores is this kind of midway point, right, between Europe and the United States. And so it's a much, well, I say much, it's a 5-hour flight from Boston, 5.5 from New York. They typically do have direct flights, don't they, Athena?
Yep,
Into
those are
San
all
Miguel?
direct flights. Yeah.
Fantastic. Awesome. Yeah, so it's a relatively accessible destination, especially from the main island, which is San Miguel, which we'll get into in a little bit. They're extremely environmentally conscious, just as a culture, as a destination. The building codes there are very, very strict. You'll see any new structures are designed with very minimalist techniques, and they're designed in a way that really integrates them into the landscape very well. Again, we just talked about, we're kind of at this precipice of where mass tourism is just starting to kind of enter into this market. So for us, it's really important to educate not just our audience on the responsible ways of experiencing this beautiful place, but also to empower some of our partners there and help them shape and form some of the policies that are beginning to come into play with regard to how those small communities are receiving tourists. And then, of course, the uniqueness of the place. The Azores is commonly referred to as the Hawaii of the Atlantic. It's this very isolated archipelago, but every island is so unique, both from its biodiversity, from its cultures, to its customs. It's almost like you've got 9 separate destinations in one. It's a really, really cool place. Would you agree with that, Athena?
Yeah, I mean, as islands do, it has developed in isolation, but it's also in terms of the climate, it's in this really interesting region where it's quite tropical. It's not extremely hot, but they grow bananas there, they grow pineapples there, there's tea and coffee, the only place you can find that in Europe. So it's a really unique environment, and that contributes to the biodiversity. I mean, one of the things that the Azores are famous for is the marine life. So whale watching, for example. It's the only place in the world where you can see 28 different species of whales and dolphins. So it's really special in that way as well.
Fantastic. Awesome. So Athena, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the travel seasons here? Just to
Yeah,
get
for
people.
sure. So as Jet mentioned, I mean, the Azores are at this precipice of being discovered. Tourism grew by 25% last year. So their high season is starting to extend. At the moment, it is really focused on July and August across all of the islands. San Miguel, which we will talk about in more detail soon, but we'll call it, it's the main island. It's where the capital is. It's where a lot of these direct flights are coming into. Their high season is starting to extend. So now that's more like June to September. That doesn't apply to the other islands yet. The best time to visit, we do feel, is May or September, depending on people's interests. May would be better if people are interested in whale watching. That's a great time of year. May and June are peak times for whales passing through. However, there is a resident population of sperm whales and dolphins, which can be seen all year round. So if people are not as passionate about it, it's still an opportunity. In terms of hotel closure, that's very variable. It really depends on the island and the accommodation. In general, the low season is November to March. There is a little peak within that around Christmas and New Year's because people do come to the Azores, particularly from Portugal. A lot of people either from the Azores either live on the mainland or have family on the mainland. So there's a lot of back and forth there. But November and February are their very, very dead seasons. So that's when things are definitely going to be closed.
Yeah, so guys, this kind of aligns really well with like southern Italy, right? If you think about Sicily or Puglia, You know, kind of avoiding those sort of middle summer months, right? And then looking at those shoulder months as kind of your ideal times to send people here, both for weather and activities, as well as just the general operations of the tourism industry, right? If you're looking at hotel closures during the winter, right? You want to kind of keep them on those shoulder seasons to stay away from some of the crowds, but also get the best of both worlds. So that's just a good point of reference. Yeah, so we'll talk about some of the challenges. We'll address some of these throughout the presentation today. So, you know, obviously there's 9 islands on the archipelago. We'll be going into a few of the main ones today. So how do you choose the right home base, right? So we'll talk about that both logistically and in terms of, you know, what's got the most options, what's the easiest to access, and then the exponential growth of the tourism industry on these islands. You know, we've already addressed that a little bit. Resources and availability, connections between islands. How do you navigate between these islands, right? It's not as easy as it sounds. Some of them are quite far away from each other. You're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. So it's not like the Caribbean where you can just hop on a plane and be at like the next Bahamian island in, you know, 20 minutes. It's a little bit further spread out than that. And there's not flights between all of them. And so we'll be talking about best ways to kind of route through this area and in the context of an ideal itinerary as well. And then how much time do you really need, right? In this area. And sometimes people think about like staying on an island for more than a week or so it seems like a long time. But like I said, there's so much variety and so much diversity among these islands that you really can stay there for quite an extended period and not find yourself with any kind of cabin fever. So, all right. So Athena, do you want to kind of orient us a little bit with your handy dandy map that you created?
For sure. So this is just to give you a little overview of the islands. As Jet was saying, some of them are pretty spread out. So what I've done here is I've grouped them into 3. The São Miguel group, so that's at the bottom right. São Miguel is that largest island. It's got Ponta Delgada, the capital, and that is within ferry distance to Santa Maria, which is pretty underdeveloped. So the difference between these 3 groups is within each group, you can travel by ferry between the islands. And outside of those groups, you have to travel by plane. There are also some plane connections between those groupings, but they're often not direct connections. You've got to hub through different islands. So that's just to give you a little overview in that sense. Population is 230,000 and dropping. And there are different levels of development on each of these islands. So as we go through, you'll see which islands we've chosen to focus on, which are São Miguel and Pico. And some of the reasons for that is infrastructure. So São Miguel, best connected, has the most infrastructure, has the big hospital, you know, has ferry connections, has plane connections.
International
And
airport.
it's yeah, an international airport, and it's well developed, and we have some wonderful accommodation options there. It's also the largest, so there's a really wide variety of things to do there. If you go to Flores, which is the farthest flung to the west of the islands, it's absolutely stunning, but there is very little infrastructure and there are no luxury accommodations, for example. So as much as it is a spectacular place, it's not some place we are sending people because it's also far away enough that it's not convenient for a day trip. You're in the middle of the Atlantic. Flights are very susceptible to weather, and it's over an hour flight from the nearest island to get out to Flores. So that's just to give you a little sense of those distances that we're dealing with. And in terms of the climate, it's extremely variable. Weather is obviously better in the summer, but the Azoreans will always tell you they get 4 seasons in a day. So you have to always be prepared for that. Weather comes through, rain comes through, and it will change quickly. So you often won't be socked in with terrible weather for a long time, but you have to be prepared for that. And some of the planning has to happen with that in mind.
Awesome. No, fantastic. That's a really good overview. So what we typically present as an ideal itinerary for this archipelago is what you see it before you. So 3 to 4 nights on São Miguel Island, which is, to Athena's earlier point, the main island. That's where you're flying into, right? So we like people to settle there. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of variety. There's just a lot of options and some really fantastic world-class accommodations here. So we love to feature that as kind of the first impression of what we call the Azores. And then from there, we like to move on to Pico. There's a direct, relatively easy flight connection from San Miguel straight into Pico. And so Pico, one of the things that we really love to do with our itineraries is creating contrast within a region, right? So we do that here in Italy all the time. One of the reasons we chose Pico is because it's got such a unique landscape, because it's a volcanic. It still has a conical volcano in the middle of the island, which is this demanding structure that just it dominates the landscape, and it does look like Hawaii in a lot of areas, right? You've got these lava flows that just stop right at the sea and they drop right in. So you have these like obsidian colored black lava rock that surrounds the island. And it couldn't be more different from a place like San Miguel, which is very green and lush, has these beautiful, huge beaches, gorgeous cliff lines, beautiful crater lakes. So the two places couldn't be more different in terms of the landscape. So we love to create that contrast and show how these different communities have developed on those different islands. And so that's a really ideal trip. And then those day trips from Pico would be Fayal and then São Jorge are easy day trips from the other islands as well. So just to kind of give you guys a snapshot of these are some of the islands we're going to be focusing on, specifically São Miguel and Pico throughout the itinerary. So São Miguel Island, so do you want to kind of briefly talk a little bit about what makes this particular place special and unique?
Yeah, so as we mentioned, it's the largest island. I put in some dimensions for you there. So it's around 40 miles long and only 9 miles across. So it is pretty easy to get around, either by transfer or by car. It has the best infrastructure, as we mentioned. It's got great roads. The Portuguese are really good at roads. Um, and one of the things that I really love about it, these islands are volcanic and they have different levels of volcanic activity. One of the big attractions in San Miguel is the geothermal elements. So that means hot springs. They have various kinds of hot springs. Some are kind of wild hot springs. There's some hot springs where they're actually in the sea, so you can be in this rock pool, which has got different temperatures in it. And they cook with it. They've historically cooked with it because you basically have an oven under the ground. So that's one of the things we love to share with people is this traditional cuisine where they're burying this stew in a fumarole in a volcanic vent, and it is slowly cooking over about 6 hours. So that's really special there. And then it's fantastic for hiking. With the size of this island, there are a wide range of hikes. We love to take people to Setsidades. We'll show that a little bit later. That's probably the image you've seen of the Azores. It's this twin crater lake, this turquoise one next to a green one. And there's some really beautiful spots around there, often paired with those classic hydrangeas, which are that other iconic image of the Azores. It's one of the only islands that has beaches. Because these are volcanic islands, it's pretty rocky. So São Miguel has a beautiful black sand beach that's right near one of our favorite properties. And it's also got tea plantations. So this is really special. They're the only tea plantations in Europe. And they produce this fantastic green tea. And we have a wonderful tea tasting experience related to that. And of course, the marine life that I mentioned before. You can go snorkeling. There's this sunken caldera, Ilha de Vilafranca. It's a nature reserve. And boat excursions are obviously a wonderful thing to do around here.
No, fantastic. And one of the things you guys, which is really interesting about the Azores in Portugal in general, but specifically the Azores, because of its vicinity to the United States and Europe, most people are English speaking. So most people speak English very well. So to navigate through this part of the world is relatively I mean,
Simple.
wouldn't say super easy, but it's definitely easier than some of the other off the beaten path destinations you could find yourself in. So the language barrier is not as big of a deal. Now, of course, that there are exceptions to that. You go into the smaller villages, and you go into like say a fisherman's village or something. You're not going to find the same level of English speaking, but for the most part, most people will speak very good English with almost no accent in some cases. It was really impressive. I was really surprised by that the first time I went. No, that's wonderful. This is often the first place that people land And it is a absolutely gorgeous island. Also a good surf destination. So the beaches here are well known for their surf. So if you have adventure travelers that are looking for that specifically, that's an easy thing to incorporate in an itinerary like this. All right, so really quickly, we're going to jump into some of our partners and introduce you guys to a number of the accommodations that we're working with here, as well as some of the experiences that we provide. And Athena, really quickly, we have a question: which plantations do you partner with for your tasting? Like the tea tasting experience?
Yeah, so we'll talk about that when we talk about our experiences. We're not actually pairing with a plantation. We're working with a water sommelier who's interacting with the geothermic water in relation to the tea. It's a really, really special experience.
And her PhD husband, who's a super genius in chemistry, is pretty cool. So, but really quickly, just as a preface to some of our accommodations, for those of you that may not be familiar with our system, we do have a scoring system. We call it our brand score. It's 1 out of 5, or 1 through 5, 5 being the best. And so we score our accommodations on a number of criteria, which include sustainability, location and accessibility, character and story, the amenities, of course, and then the food and culinary aspect. So we try and hit all of those to create a good, well-rounded scoring system for these accommodations. So you'll see a score, a brand score next to each one. So we'll start out with one of my personal favorite accommodations here, and that is the Santa Barbara Eco Resort. So this is on San Miguel. This is on the kind of on the larger side of accommodations that we do work with, but it has so much character and story and sense of place, and it just feels like it's exactly where it should be. So 14 studios, 7 one-bedroom villas, 9 two-bedroom villas. So there's a lot of variety here. This is a fantastic, and this is just a view from the main pool deck. So you're elevated above the beach. So the main beach, on one of the main beaches on San Miguel, one of the main surfing spots, this accommodation was actually founded by a local surfer. And so this was one of the best surfing spots on the island. And so he built this beautiful accommodation that sits right above it. So it has direct beach access. And then it has this gorgeous view over the ocean and the beach that you can see on both sides. So it's an absolutely stunning view. The rooms are beautiful. Everything is done in a very eco-friendly way. I kind of wish we had a picture of one of the actual buildings, but the buildings themselves, you can kind of see it in this bottom picture a little bit as you look out. The buildings themselves are actually constructed of a cork, like wood cork on the outside. So they're built in a very contemporary kind of modern way. But then they've got this natural insulation around them that just creates a really cool, almost rusted sort of look to it. But it's absolutely a beautiful accommodation. The food here is fantastic. They have a full restaurant and bar. The food in the Azores, I mean, it varies from island to island, but one of the really interesting things about this island chain was that, they have more farmers than they do fishermen. So there are more like cattle farms and those kinds of things than there are actually fishermen. Now, of course, there's a lot of fish in the diet, but there's actually a lot of like local meats and vegetables, and it's a really diverse palate here. So yeah, the food here is absolutely incredible. They've got a fantastic wellness center at this accommodation. It's huge. It can be privatized if you need it. There's a number of swimming pools. There's the main pool in the front that overlooks the ocean, and then there's kind of a lap pool that spans an entire building of one of the accommodations that you can access from your room. Again, you've got direct beach access. There's a really cool little bar down there. You can actually walk to the nearest town from the beach, which has a lot of really great options in terms of restaurants and shops and stuff like that. That's a little bit of a hike, so it's kind of an adventure. I don't know, Athena, what would you say? It's maybe
it's 15-minute
30-minute walk,
I think it's
20-minute
more
walk,
like 15 or 20.
15 or 20? Yeah, maybe my
depending how you're feeling.
Yeah, right. It was like 15 on the way there and like 30 on the way back.
Exactly.
But no, it's a really great location. it is secluded on its own. It's not in a city or in a community, but there is that city that's not too far. And I forget the name of it, but there's a lot of options that are nearby. So this is just a really, really great place also for families. So really kid friendly. There's just a lot to do here. Having the beach right there is a fantastic place to just kind of hub yourself for a few days. So really cool spot, and then easily accessible to some of the other activities, whether it be hiking or going into some of the other towns, doing some different tastings. So there's a lot that you can do from here. Anything you wanted to add, Athena, on this one?
No, I just wanted to emphasize like the farm to table in this case, they actually have a farm on site, which you can visit. They've got
Oh,
hydroponics, they're
yeah.
growing their own stuff, which is going directly to the plate. So we were really impressed by the food there. That was really excellent. And also the location, just to bear in mind, everything is around half an hour away, maximum 40 minutes. So even though this is, you're not surrounded by a town, which I think is beautiful. You're in the middle of the countryside. You feel like you have that peace and quiet, but everything is extremely accessible regardless. We've got some
Yeah.
questions coming up here, Jet.
Oh, awesome. Let's see, really quick. Is there a meal planned offer? Approximate price point in high season. Is there a meal plan? Is there a meal plan offer? That's a good, I don't know is the answer for me. Athena, do you know
We
anything
haven't
about?
worked with a meal plan offer. I mean, I think that's something that could be arranged with them.
Hmm,
I don't think they currently include it in any of their bookings, but that's something that could be discussed with for sure.
yeah. Okay. And then would you recommend having a rental car?
Definitely. I think it's, I mean, that's personal preference as well. I think it's a wonderful way to explore, and it's very easy to drive around there. You're driving on the same side of the road. The roads in general are very good quality.
Yep.
So I would personally recommend that. I don't know,
It's an
Jet, what
easy
you think?
place to drive. I've done it a number of times. Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. All right. So the next accommodation. So Athena, do you want to talk about this one?
Yes, sure. We just had one other question. Hope wanted to know about approximate price point in high season. So
Oh,
we're
got it.
looking at, depending on what kind of accommodation, we're looking at around 650 per night, between 630 and 720 per night
At
in
the
high season, at peak
I
season.
so yeah, like peak season, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Got it. All right.
Um, so yes, white exclusive villas. So this is another combination that we really love. And I have to just point out here that we do have a couple other amazing, unique on-brand accommodations on our radar that we still have to visit. As Jet mentioned at the outset, we take our R&D very seriously and we go and vet and visit all of these places. So we haven't had a chance to do that yet. So we wanted to share these with you today. White exclusive villas and suites. This is a sister property actually of Santa Barbara. So they have the same standards, beautifully decorated rooms, really well appointed. This is much smaller. It feels much more intimate. It's just one building. You've got this beautiful small infinity pool looking out to the other side of the island. So Santa Barbara's on the north side of the island, facing north, and this is on the south. This is much closer to Ponta Delgada, the main city. It's probably 10-15 minute drive rather than a 30-minute drive. And it is almost adults only. So in general, it's an adults only hotel and it does have that vibe. There is a mini villa which is attached to it, which is also adults only. And then just down the road, a few minutes down the road, they have recently opened, I think it's called Casa de Rocha, and that is a small villa with 4 rooms, and that is open to all ages. So that's the only time that they're not adults only. But the main place is going to be adults only. That small villa has its own pool as well, so it's very self-contained while you still have access to the restaurant. It has the same standard of restaurant and farm to table as Santa Barbara, has a bar and has a small wellness cabin and services, and you're just looking out. There's no beach on this side of the island. You're right above the rocks, so you're really on top of the ocean here. It's lapping up, just below the cliff, so it's really special that way. I would say it's perfect for couples, groups of families or friends if they wanted to get the small villa, but it really feels like a more mature place, a more adult focused place.
Athena, we got a couple more questions really quickly
Sure.
before we move on. What is the age considered adult at this property? Because I know that that's true. Sometimes it varies, right? It could be 12,
That's a very
15.
good question. I imagine it is 18. I haven't looked at that specifically, but I do think they consider 18 to be adult.
Yeah.
I could look into that for you.
Okay, thank you. And then how busy is peak season, such as beginning of July?
So that's a great question. I mean, it really depends where you are. As these islands go, we only ran into crowds once, I would say,
Yeah.
near Setsidaj, which is just it's a kind of must-do thing. Everyone wants to see this Vista do Rei. They want to see the view of those two lagoons.
Mhm.
Um, and the weather is so variable, clouds can roll in there, so you go when there's great view. It's still off the beaten path, you know. It gets filled up, and what we're experiencing is mostly an availability question. There are not that many properties on the island, so that's where it feels busy to us. But you're not dealing with crowds. You're not dealing
Right.
with massive tour buses everywhere.
This isn't like Venice or Rome or Florence or anything like that, you know, Taormina. This is still a very much an undiscovered destination, and it's spread out. So bear in mind that, you know, there's still 9 islands. And so the people that are visiting these places, they tend to disperse a little bit more. Um, but to Athena's point, there are a few little bottleneck spots, right, that are the Insta famous spots on the island, specifically San Miguel, where you will find crowds almost any time of the year. But of course, you know, July and August, you're going to see a little bit more than normal. But for the most part, you know, what we like what Athena was saying, we really just need to be mindful of accommodation availability, right? At this tier, right? When if you just want to go get an Airbnb, that's another thing. But when you're looking at really traveling at a level that your travelers are accustomed to, that's more turnkey and more cohesive at a 4 and 5 star level, you kind of have to get in early and plan ahead. So just keep that in mind in the same way that you would for any other highly frequented visit destination. All right. So we'll move on to Pico Island. So Athena, you want to talk a little bit about this really quick before we dive into some of the
Sure.
accommodations here?
So yeah, I put a little map here as well, just to give you a sense of that particular island. It's a lot smaller. It's 27 miles long, 10 miles across, and you can see just how close it is to its neighboring islands. So to the left of it, you've got Fayal, and that's really a hop, skip, and a jump. And then in front of it, a little bit to the top right, you've got Saint George. So those are the obvious day trip destinations because that's really straightforward. It's the youngest island of their archipelago, so since these are volcanic islands, they've all developed over time. This is only 300,000 years old, so it's young by geological terms. And one of the things that's particularly special about it, it was extremely and still is kind of extremely barren. So when these islands were first populated by the Portuguese in the 14th century, they really couldn't survive there. There was nothing growing. They really struggled because it was so infertile. And so they slowly developed this incredible technique of stacking volcanic rocks into these low-walled enclosures where they managed to grow wine by protecting the vines this way. And this is now UNESCO protected, and they grow some absolutely beautiful, particularly white wines out there with a lot of volcanic, mineralic, and salty um, notes to them. So that's something that's very special to Pico and quite unique. Whale watching is prime around here. You can also swim with dolphins, which is incredibly special. And we absolutely love it for snorkeling and scuba diving because you have proximity to some of these other islands, and there are also sunken calderas around here. It's absolutely fabulous. It's also a prime place for people who are serious divers. So if you've got advanced divers, you've got dive masters, it's a bit of a way out, but you are near this place called Princess Alice Bank. And this is one of the top spots in the world to go diving. It's this bank basically imagine a platform that's about 30 meters down. It's like what, 90 feet down? And that attracts all sorts of wildlife. You've got large pelagic fish, you have rays of different sizes, you've even got sharks. So this is a really special place. It's around 2 hours boat ride out there, but absolutely
Mm.
worth it because along the way you've got dolphins and sea turtles and whales. So that becomes a whole experience in itself. And of course, not to be missed, you can see the little brown spot on the island and see the compare it with the image below is Pico Mountain. So Pico
Mm.
Mountain is this iconic volcanic cone with a little mini cone on top of it. And this is the tallest mountain in Portugal, the Azores being considered part of Portugal. This is, for anyone who is an intermediate to advanced hiker, this is a must do. I think Jet can speak to this. I was looking after some clients, but he had the opportunity of climbing it. For the average person, it's around a 7 hour hike. I think you guys did it in 5,
Yeah,
but
but that's because of my wife. She did it in 5 and I didn't want to get left behind. So we did it in 5. Yeah, no, it was a hustle for sure. But yeah, she climbed that mountain like she does anything else. She just drove for it. It was awesome. It really is. It is not a beginner hike at all. Young children would not do well here. This is for intermediate to advanced level hikers. It can range kind of, but only within that category. So, great destination for adventure travel. Fantastic. And of course, there are other options. And so, if you have a group of people, some of which are more adventurous than others, there's a lot of variety that you can split off into as a group. We do it all the time with our groups. So that's something we'll get into a little bit more when we talk about the actual experiences on these islands. But no, this is just a stunning place, a complete contrast from the first destination. So we'll talk a little bit about the first accommodation here. As you can see, this has got the wow factor, right? Because you've got this beautiful volcano that just dominates the landscape. There's not a lot of elevation outside of it. So it's its own thing, right? It is the island, basically. And so you're sitting here between the sea and this volcano. And you've just got this incredible view that feels like something spiritual. I mean, it really is amazing. This is an incredible place. So Ajega de Fogo, I didn't say that right. Athena, how do you say that?
you
Ajega
said
de
that
Fogo.
with a Brazilian accent. It's okay.
Oh, I did?
I say Adega do Fogo, but
Adega
you're
de
close
Fogo.
enough.
So this used to be an old distillery for this community, and it's built like most of the buildings around there. We call them the cow buildings because they're built with this black lava stone, but then there's these white accents that kind of pock some of the exterior. And so it's a very historic place. The still has been maintained. The young woman who purchased the property and restored it has really done a fantastic job in maintaining its original character. And it's an exclusive accommodation. So there's 6 rooms. So this is great for small groups. We use it in our small group trip, but it is exclusive rental only. So you can think of it as sort of a serviced villa because in many ways it is. It does have a full kitchen. Their staff there are just fantastic. They have some of the most amazing breakfasts that I've had on the island. And then they can provide all types of private dinners and things like that. So there's a lot of really great things you can do. This platform that you're kind of looking at here, I don't know if there's another pic, no, but this platform here, this can be cleared. This is quite large actually, and it's got this amazing view. They've used this often for like wellness retreats, yoga, things like that. So it's a very versatile space for that type of event. So if you have clients that are looking for that or looking to host something like that, this is a really fantastic location. Again, beautiful infinity pool. They do have free bicycles, so you can go around, you can go into town. It's a relatively short ride. They have a really cool sauna. They provide yoga mats. The rooms are stunning. They're all just very high end, very high level, and again, maintain the original character of the building. You've got all the lava stone accents that have been left there. And then the common area is beautiful, and they have all of these amazing little like curated spaces throughout the property because the property is quite expansive. It's got I don't know, maybe a couple hectares at least, but they've got these really cool little trails, and then one of them goes into this beautiful little I don't know how to say it, but it's sort of this surrounded by old lava rock, and they've built this table, and this is where they do a lot of like their outdoor dining experiences. So there's just a lot of really cool things that you can do with this setting that's just fantastic. So yeah, great for families, small groups. It's got two, let's see, it's got a couple rooms on the ground floor too, so easy access for folks that have maybe mobility issues. Yeah, definitely solo travelers, probably not the best fit just because it is an exclusive accommodation. Yeah, no, fantastic. Really, really a stunning place. Awesome. Athena, do you want to speak to the forest homes a little bit?
Yeah, so Forest Homes is a project that has just opened actually. There are these 5 villas on, what is it, the north side of the island? I can't remember. Yes, north side of the island. And they're looking out over the sea, and they also have a view of Saint George Island. And they've been absolutely beautifully designed. It's actually the same entire interior designer as Adego de Fogo. And they're small villas. So they are, most of them are two bedrooms, and then one I think is 3 bedroom. They have a swimming pool, which I don't think was filled at the time of this photo. They have a swimming pool which is shared amongst the 5 villas, and you can have a chef come in. It's a full little villa, and I would say this is perfect for people who want a little bit of independence, who have a rental car, want to zip around the island a little bit, but you can also spend the day chilling here. They each have these roof terraces with the beautiful view, and you're literally 5 minutes walk from the coast. Directly in front of this there's a little local beach bar, and there's one of these Atlantic pools that they're really into on the Azores, which I think are fantastic. Basically they block off a little bit of the sea washes in, and you have a natural jacuzzi, and this is just how they enjoy the sea in a safe and extremely fun way. So that's one of the things that is right around here. um, and I also wanted to mention, in terms of both of these accommodations, they are within really easy access of the airport. So Adego do Fogo is maybe
Mhm.
like seven
Uh,
minutes away from the
yeah, it's
airport,
super
and
close, right?
this is maybe 15 or 20 minutes away.
But and
So
again, it's
really
tiny
easy.
little regional airports, so it's not like you've
Yes.
got, jets flying
Oh
overhead.
yeah.
It's like every
You've
now
got
and
your
then
two
you
or
have a
three
little
flights coming in per day.
prop plane that
Yeah.
lands. So it's nothing, yeah, it's nothing that would be
It's not
uh
disturbing at all.
no, not at all. Exactly.
Um, yeah, so as I mentioned, there's a couple more photos of the accommodations. You can see they've got these beautiful sea view balconies, rooftop terraces, garage and laundry room. So this is great for a family. It's great for a longer stay if people just want to chill, and be at the pool and enjoy the view. This is a really nice place for that.
Awesome. Cool. So fun fact, really quickly, some of you guys may have heard, there's a guy named Randall Carlson who's gotten pretty famous through the Joe Rogan experience. But basically, there is a faction that has this idea that the Azorean archipelago or plateau were once the islands of Atlantis. And I can't speak to whether or not there's any evidence to
Right. I mean,
support the
this
claim,
is
but
also it was more of an old seafaring myth, right? There were all of these magical islands that popped on and off maps. There were lots of them, but the Azores is probably one of the origins of the Atlantis myth, because ships would pass it occasionally, and sometimes it would be there and sometimes it wouldn't be there. So this goes back a long time when people were plying the seas.
no, that's cool. Awesome. So the e-bike experience. Cool. So Athena, can you speak to this a little bit? Because I think I skipped this
I
one.
think you skipped this. Yes. So this is something we do with one of our local partners. She's a wonderful local woman with her own business, and she does this lovely tour. So Furnish is on San Miguel. It's one of the very lush valleys, volcanic valleys, the beautiful lake, often quite humid around there. And this is where a lot of that geothermal activity that I mentioned before is concentrated. So as you can see in the image, there's someone putting a pot into the ground. This is where they are slow cooking their cozido, which is generally a meat stew. They do veggie options as well. They put in all kinds of meats and vegetables and cabbages, and they slow cook it underground in this geothermal heat for multiple hours. So on the e-bike experience, we stopped by here. We cycled near the lake. We stop and get to experience some of this. Might bike down to a little fishing village, and then another incredible thing about this area, and we'll get onto this in the tea tasting experience, is this geothermal water is literally gushing out of the ground, and it has different mineral properties. So you can go and you can taste water that's just coming out of a tap, and it might be warm, it might be cold, it might taste a little bit lemony, it might taste a little bit like iron. And so this is this very unique multisensory experience of these waters that have been found to have a wide range of health properties and have been used by locals without knowing their chemical properties for curatively for centuries.
Oh, that's great. Really quick, Athena, we got one more question here. How long from the Azores to Madeira?
That's a really
Do you
nice
know?
question. So they are both Portuguese, but they are not adjacent. And as far as I know, there are not direct flights between them. So you would have to hub through, probably Lisbon would be your best bet for that. But yeah,
Because
I
Madeira
know
is a
they're
good
like,
bit further south, right?
yes, Madeida's much further south, and
That's what-
climate-wise, think more like Canary Islands. So you're approaching
Right.
Africa. So yeah, that's not going to be a direct flight from the
Yeah,
Azores.
probably wouldn't be in the same itinerary.
Unless people really wanted to go for a long
Well, like
stint
a
and do
couple of
all
weeks.
of the Portuguese islands and maybe do a city stop in Lisbon. But yeah,
Yeah,
they're not
sometimes
interlinked.
it's hard to forget that, the Azores are what, 2.5 hour flight from Lisbon?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah,
So
they're
despite
pretty
being
isolated.
Portuguese,
They're fairly
they're
far.
they're pretty far from everything.
Yeah, awesome. So this was one of the most amazing experiences. So Athena mentioned earlier that we work with a water sommelier, um, who's on the right here, and she does some amazing stuff at this place. So she works the building itself is an old bathhouse for the community that they used to use with the volcanic water, and in fact, it still functions in that capacity from time to time. I think it has to, according to the local laws. Um, but the way it works is the experience that you had earlier on the e-bike that day, where you get the experience of putting the stew in the ground and they show you how they prepare everything. Well, this has already been done a day or two before. And so they've got this whole meal that you've just seen how it's prepared, already prepared and ready for you. And so you get this incredible just variety of local cuisine that would just blow your mind. It's so good. And again, they've got everything from just vegetarian options to everything else. So there's a lot of variety there. But then one of the really cool aspects of this is, as Athena mentioned earlier, the water is so different depending on where you get it. And on this one site, they have a couple different springs that are coming from different sources. And they have you do kind of a water tasting where you're comparing the difference between all of these different springs, and they are very different. And she also mentioned that they have a lot of the tea plantations on these islands. Well, they've taken this tea, which is just a green tea, just a normal green tea, and there's one particular spring on this island that her husband has found, and he is a PhD researcher. I think he's a chemist out of Cambridge or some Ivy League school in the UK. And he lives here half the year. And what he does is he studies this water. And what they found is there's properties in this water that turns the green tea purple. And so there's this really cool, they build up to this whole experience. And there's this really cool thing where they do this and then they chill it. And the properties in this tea, the husband is claiming, is basically it's an it helps you digest alcohol faster, process alcohol faster. So it's an anti-hangover tea, and it does work. It's really amazing. So I think they're onto something here. But this experience is just so cool. They're the most lovely people, and you really do get a sense for like the traditions of the area and the island, and what does make this place so special with its natural properties, and how people have been using the waters and the teas and the food here for remedies and nurturing. So it's a really, really cool experience. So the Mount Piku hike, we talked a little bit about this. it can be intense. It's definitely not for the beginner hiker. Again, Athena alluded, the guides are fantastic. They're really they're well spoken. They're well versed on the area. They're extremely good at reading the clientele. So, before you even start, they kind of know what experience level you need to be at for that day. But the views from the top, like she said, it could be a 7-hour hike, and it typically is. So it's an all-day thing, but the views from the top of this thing are just stunning. You see the entire island. You see all of these little volcanic, forget what they're called, but there's all these little craters that are around the entire island, and it's just like it's out of a storybook. I mean, it really is an amazing place. So it's a must do if you've got people that are able, if they're looking for this type of adventure. This is just an amazing experience. Highly recommend it. Okay, Athena, do you want to talk a little bit about the wine here? Because that's a whole nother feature when it comes to the Pico Islands specifically.
Yeah, so as I mentioned briefly, I mean, they're famous for this white wine, which is grown. You can see in the image here now these low volcanic walls, and unlike how we imagine vineyards in general, these tall rows of vines, these grow basically at ground level. So they're not growing up, they're growing along, and that way they're protected. So one of the experiences we really love is a wine tasting here. You get to taste a bunch of the wines. We have a partner that they are a winery, so you get to do a wine tasting, a winery visit, cellar visit, and then finish up with one of the more spectacular meals I think I've ever had, which is a 6-course meal. And it is all local ingredients, not just purchased locally, but oh, this is from my grandma's brother's cow, and I made this butter this morning, and then my friend spearfished this fish, and prepared absolutely exquisitely, paired with these local wines. So it's a really special experience, gastronomically and
And again, these are UNESCO vineyards, so this is just a really amazing. But the vines are really small. They're not the typical vines that you would see in like parts of Italy or Napa Valley or anything. It is a very unique way of growing the grapes and processing them. But again, you've got this gorgeous landscape that's all over, right? You've got the ocean in front of you and the volcano in the back. So everywhere you go on this island is spectacular, and the food here is just phenomenal. It really is an amazing experience. So just to kind of lean into a little bit of what Athena mentioned earlier. So between the two islands, there's a lot you can do. There's whale watching, you swim with dolphins, snorkeling. It's one of the premier scuba diving destinations in the world. And it truly is incredible. I dove on one of these calderas, and it was like being on another planet. It really is an amazing experience, both for people who are avid divers and for beginners. So there's a wide range. Yeah, you've got cheese tastings, some of the most beautiful hikes anywhere, which I think we showed some pictures of earlier. They do have, there's a family-owned coffee plantation here on South George, some traditional weaving workshops and things like that. Of course, they have ceramics and things like that as well that are local to the area. So there's just a wide range of things to do and see. And I think just one of the most amazing things about this place is the diversity of each of the islands themselves. So it really does deserve, it could be an easy full week or more itinerary. All right. So that wraps up just our introduction to the Azores to you guys. So just really quickly, for those of you that may not be familiar with our small group trips, obviously we provide DMC services here as just a turnkey itinerary for custom itineraries. But for those of you that have maybe solo travelers or folks that are traveling on maybe a little bit of a lower budget, we do offer small curated group trips. And Athena is actually our facilitator for the Azores small group trip that happens in the summer. And so these trips are fully guided by our facilitators. And of course, Athena speaks, she's fluent in Portuguese, so she can get us around to some of the smaller places. And then you've got that full concierge experience throughout the entire journey. It's really great for solo travelers, people that maybe want to plug into a community of other travelers like this and still have this experience of kind of an exclusive trip. All private transfers are provided, most meals, all the accommodations. In this particular itinerary, we are staying at Santa Barbara, which was the first accommodation we demonstrated or presented to you guys on San Miguel. That's the first stop. So we're there for a few nights, and then we go to Pico at Ajega de Fogo, which is the exclusive accommodation. So we have exclusivity of the second. And just really quickly, a little bit more about how these work with regard to our travel advisor partners. We do offer a 10% commission on registration. So we pay that upon registration of your client. So once your client registers, if this is something that they're really interested in, first and foremost, if you request a full itinerary from us, we will give you the full Travelify itinerary with the pricing and all of that. Once they register, we just issue you your 10% commission on this. We can also hop on a call with you. So if you're interested to kind of dive into the itinerary and kind of get into the nitty gritty and the details of it, so you can be more prepared to present to your clientele, we're more than happy to do that as well. And of course, Athena can assist with that too. Yeah, so just a little bit about this particular group trip. Our departure dates for this year are June 14th through the 21st. Starting is 6,500 euros, single occupancy supplement of 1,500. It's a max group of 10, so it's not a big group. We like to have flexibility, so that's one of the reasons we work with these smaller groups, and it feels just a little bit more intimate. We can give them more one-on-one attention when needed, and just have a bit of a higher touch experience. So, and of course, we always invite our travel advisor partners to join these trips when you can. We still issue you your 10% commission on that as well. So yeah, just a little bit of the highlights. So we're going from Santa Barbara through Ajega de Fogo on Pico. We do offer the guided hike of Pico, but we also offer the whale watching as an alternate, right? So not everybody is obligated to do this intense hike, right? Those that want to, obviously we want to encourage that, but we always give options when it comes to things that could be particularly limiting on with mobility.
Yeah, actually, Jet, just to hop in there, this time we adjusted a little bit after our last group trip because everyone did want to do the whale watching. We're offering a local wine tasting, like an
We
extra
changed
wine
it.
tasting instead of the Pico hike. So that would be exploring some more of the vineyards and getting a little bit deeper into that.
Makes sense. Oh, cool. Okay, awesome. Fantastic. All right, guys. So that wraps up our presentation of the Azores. I hope this was informative to all of you. I know some of you may be familiar, some of you may not be familiar at all. So I hope some of this information proves useful, and please feel free to reach out if we can be of any assistance with either custom itineraries through this region, or if you're interested in learning more about our small group trip that we'll be leading in June. Our next webinar, really quickly, is going to be April 30th, and we'll be going through the Val d'Orcia, which is the southern part of Tuscany. It's kind of where the more iconic landscapes of Tuscany live. That think Pienza and Montalcino, these types of places produce some world-class wine, but also have some world-class views. And so we've developed some incredible partnerships here. We've spent a lot of time here in the last couple of years. Because most people travel to Chianti and then Siena, San Gimignano, things that are within the periphery of Florence. And so we're really trying to kind of push people a little bit further south towards the Val d'Orcia. It still feels very off the beaten path in certain areas. And it's a really great way for you to connect through from, say, a place like Rome or Northern Lazio. So we'll tie some of those other alternate destinations in on that as well. So I'd encourage you guys to register for this. If you can make it, we'd love to have you. And again, just to clarify, we did have a future question regarding whether or not we provide DMC services in Portugal. We do currently even on the mainland, as Athena is very familiar with that area, and we've done a lot of connecting itineraries. So starting on the mainland and then connecting or extending onto the Azores. That's something that we've done a number of times as well. So if you have any inquiries that meet that criteria, please feel free to reach out. You guys can always find us on our website at lifebeyondtheroom.com and click on the travel advisor link there. And of course, as always, I'll be sending out an email to all of you who've attended with this recording and links for future webinars and our itinerary request form if you don't have it already. So thank you, Athena. I appreciate all of the things that you do for us, and thank you for presenting and sharing all your knowledge with us on this destination.
My pleasure, and thank you to everyone for attending. We look forward to sharing this amazing place with you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, guys. Right. See.